Live streaming is on.
All right, we're live on Monero Talk with Andrew Florio. He's a little nervous. This is his first time on streaming on YouTube. I told him no
Cheers, everybody.
worries. We're just two guys who will be chatting crypto, which is what we do here. Andrew is running the Spez Moneruju project. I probably totally butchered that name. I'm not an Esperanto guy. I can't even say the Android wallet properly, Monerujo. I always thought Esperanto. The whole point of Esperanto was that it's supposed to be like something global and easy, but it seems to be the opposite for me. So,
well, I'm sure it's a self-taught thing. You know, you have to be able to like speak it with other people. And if you don't, obviously, but we're testing that today.
Yeah. So let's get right into it. So what exactly is the project that you're working on? If you want to quickly describe it and how you came to work on it and what it has to do with Monero and Esperanto.
Right. So initially how I first started off with going like learning about crypto and all that sort of thing. Well, long story short, I was on Reddit. I started hitting, I was bored one day, started hitting the random button. Got to Monero, or I guess the subreddit for Monero. And I learned about it that way. And long story short, I got really into the collectibles side of thing on Bitcoin Talk, the forum there. And I was thinking, I saw so much money being passed around. So like insanely amount, like the amount of money that was being bought for collectibles. Like I didn't realize how much collectibles were actually valued in the crypto community until I got there. And in this point in time, the dev fund, it was just, it's on getmonero.org. And I was always wanting to do something for the dev community. I wanted to become a part of the community in some type of way. I didn't really know how to do that, and I always had this idea in my head: if I created a collectible that could self-fund itself, and from the profits that is originated from the sales, then that could continue this trend of where we just keep on continuing. At the time, I wanted to do like silver coins. That was the whole idea at the beginning, which that didn't pan out just because it's too tedious. But anyways, I wanted to be able to create something that just kind of keeps on generating funds for the dev team that gets donated to the general dev fund. And it's a way for me to work on a cool project every 6 months. So I find that interesting myself. But since the Monero team, we go through hard forks, the biannual upgrades every 2 years or twice every year. I thought it was a cool way to have a self-generating fund for the development team, and that's initially where the project came from. Yeah.
So all the profits. Oh, wait, I'm getting feedback here. Hold on a sec. All the profits go to the Monero development.
That's right. So so at the beginning, so we have two notes. One is 100 milli, so like the 0.1 Monero. The second one is the 0.2 Monero. And so with the general sales, so right now it's being sold at the time it was $35, and I set it at a flat rate in Bitcoin. So that was I was initially trying to first off start the project by recuperating my initial start, like the funds to start the project. And so for the next series of notes that I'm be creating for the Carbon series for the next biannual upgrade, it would be the profits from that would instead go to the dev fund and also produce another series of notes and so on. It just kind of self-funds itself, if that makes any sense. I don't know if I'm explaining it right, but that's the whole idea of it. Yeah.
Now, is anybody else making these notes? I know like Bitcoin, that was a thing. Is this kind of the first version for Monero notes? Have there been others?
No, actually not. So there have been notes that have been made, like as well as coins. So at first it was well, not first. It was BitBills. I think that was the first official physical Bitcoin. And then it was Mike Caldwell. He did Casacious Coins. He really, every news topic you would go on a Bitcoin, that would be the thing that you would look at. That put Bitcoin into the physical realm, essentially. And so, later on down the road, you started having. So who I work with is the team's called Polymerbit. So I work with these two guys out of Switzerland. And they create these polymer notes, so it feels like real notes. Actually, it's in a case, but you can see like it has the same type of look to it as so it has the same kind of, I guess, texture to it as a dollar bill, but it's a synthetic polymer. And what that in other words, they have been creating notes for Bitcoin and Monero as well. But this is the first time we're doing something that's like in a charitable aspect. So it's the first time that there's a product or a collectible being sold that's going towards, I guess, a charitable donation, non-for-profit.
And Polymer Notes has been doing it for Monero already.
Yeah, so there's actually been a couple series. So the first one ever was like a test note that he made, or the team made, and there's been a couple others, but they don't really I guess like specifically make just Bitcoin notes or just make Monero notes or just make whatever. They kind of have I would say I think they have around like 6 different coins that they produce. I'm not 100% sure on that, so don't quote me on that. But they're really just specializing in making cold wallet notes that you can put a hologram over it. So the whole purpose, the whole point of like loadable type of collectibles is to have the private key under. I'm sorry for the listeners if you're listening on the podcast, but on the video you would see like a little sticker that has a hologram, and then you peel this hologram right here that has the mnemonic 24 seed right here, and then before we send out the notes, we ensure that the person actually did fund the public address that's right there.
So it gets funded. So wait, hold on. So I buy one of these notes,
right,
from you, and then I fund it before you even ship it.
Right. So you buy the note, which is $35. It set it at a flat Bitcoin rate at the time. I think it was, I can't remember. So you buy the note, and then you fund individually 0.1 or 0.2 based in to this address, and then you provide the transaction hash, which we verify, and only until then we send it out. So every note that you see out in the wild, that it has your 0.1 or your 0.2,
and then as long as that hologram hasn't been
removed,
disrupted, or moved in any way, that it's got the Monero on
it.
it.
So so a lot of the coins and a lot of the notes that have been made in the past that in the collectible community, if you're loading it, you can see if you have those hologram notes, the point of that is that if you peel it, it leaves behind like a residue, like a void. It says something on it that you can definitely not put the sticker back and make it look like it's still loaded or anything like that, or you haven't seen the seed,
right?
In order to spend the funds. So
it'd be very hard to do, is what you're saying.
Yeah, right.
I guess it's a little trickier or it would potentially be easier with Monero than with Bitcoin to pull a fraud like that, right?
Yeah.
Because, with Bitcoin, you could always check the blockchain and see that.
Right. So on the thread, so that was one of the things that I was kind of worried about, because one of the things that Casacious, the main guy that you see for Bitcoin, he got in trouble back in 2013 it was 2013 about with I forgot which entity it was in the U.S., but it essentially saying that he was trying to money launder for other people, and just because he's taking in funds and he's funding the wallet himself. And so I wanted to make sure that he you're able to prove that someone else was to fund the note, right? So I would say like if you provide the transaction hash yourself, then that way you can be able to kind of sort of prove that it's not originating from me or someone else. It's just funding from you're the person that's funding the wallet yourself, and just to avoid legal, I guess, jeopardies that I don't really know that much about, but just to kind of
yeah,
go
I mean, I
around
guess
that.
I keep getting feedback. I don't know if it's on your end or.
I'm not sure. I haven't heard any feedback yet, so I'm sorry.
Yeah, I guess with selling, because then it's like you're selling Monero essentially at that point.
Right. Yeah, and I guess that there would be some currency, I guess, legal issues with that.
Yeah, potentially KYC, AML, all that. You're
right.
you're somebody that's selling Monero.
Right.
Okay. So, but you're effectively not. You're just selling this thing that could hold Monero, and you're filling it yourself.
Right. Yeah. So, one of the people from Polymerbit, he was mostly in charge of helping me to create the design, create the just the general graphic. How does it look? And then another person from the team, he was the one that created all the cold wallets, and he has this method of being able to just kind of transfer all that to me in a PDF, and I just kind of put it on a if you look at the Spes Monero thread on Bitcoin Talk, you can be able to see on the original post that it has all the public addresses and it has all the private keys, or I'm sorry, not private keys, private view keys that is associated with it, so then people can be able to verify those funds later on. And so what people do is that they provide their transaction ID on that thread as like a proof of verification.
Okay, so the view keys are there so people can see it.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So have you always been into collectibles, or is it just once you got into crypto?
Yeah, so I mean, initially, like I learned about Bitcoin back in 2012. College roommate of mine, he showed it to me. I don't even remember how he found it. I think it was probably some like 4chan forum or something like that. And he showed me this website that essentially displayed like these like I don't know, arbitrary amounts of Bitcoin being sold and bought on these exchanges, and they will pop up in little bubbles. It says like, $50, $100 was sold and whatever. And it was it was interesting, but like at the same time, I thought it was like some type of scam. Like it didn't seem right. And I didn't really take too much about it at first. I just kind of ignored it. And then 2013 happened, and I saw the rise in the price and all that stuff, but I still didn't really get into Bitcoin. And then we got to 2015, where I just so happened to be on like a summer break at the time. I was going to school for college, and I was just on, I was on Reddit, hitting the random button, found the subreddit for Monero. And then it just led me, one step after another. I just got on Bitcoin Talk, and I got really interested in the collectible side of it, because it seemed like it was like a hedge in some type of way. As like I don't know, like you're investing in art, but at the same time you're investing in crypto. You're at the same time you're investing in precious metals at the same time with a couple of these coins. You got silver coins and that have the same type of thing. You have at the back, they have a private key that's on the back side of the coin, and then they have a hologram, so as to prevent anybody from being able to spend it. And for some reason, it just intrigued me. I got into that sort of side of the community, and it just intrigued me. And I don't know, I was trying to fill a niche that, to have a way to have continuous funds for the dev team. I don't know. It's just I've always had this idea back about 2 years ago, and I talked to Polymerbit about the idea of it. He said, "Yeah, I'll help you in any type of way you want me to," and he just walked me through every step, and it was he made it real easy. So I'm glad he did. So hopefully it takes off. I don't know if it will take off. I mean, still at this point in time, we still got probably like I would say like 40% of the notes still to sell. So, and at this point in time, I'm just breaking even. So if I were to sell every note that I have, then I would be getting my money back, and then I would also fund another a project. And that's where the $35 came from. Is I'm just trying to break even, and then just keep on continuing the project. Which then all that profit from there would go to the dev team and then continue another project. So I don't know if I'm going to keep on selling them. I don't know if if people will take a liking to it or not, but well, hopefully it will. So I don't know.
Yeah, well, it's just cool that you started it, you're working on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting that you got into collectible thing out of all things, but it is kind of a big space in crypto land. I was just talking to another guy today, who actually the Morph token guy. I don't know if you use Morph token at all. He's really into collectibles and stuff. Whenever I see him at events, he's always like, checking out the different crypto collectibles, and he knows a lot about it, all the different coins that have been created over the years. He's actually developing a watch. Looks really cool that he's working on.
Really? Oh, yeah. That's interesting. I haven't seen anything about that yet, but I'll be looking out for it. I guess the thing that intrigued me the most is that you're seeing something that's being sold as 1 Bitcoin, for example, and then it's being, at the time when I got really into it, it was like being sold for like 3 Bitcoin. And, for some reason that part intrigued me. Is like, okay, I get it that it's attached to this silver metal, but I don't understand how it's getting that much more value attached to it. And it's just, the fact of, it's a rare collectible art piece, essentially, that there's a market for. And that's what initially started the idea of, oh, maybe I can be able to take that market and be able to kind of put it in, some of that profit into the dev space. So I don't know. It's just well, it's a testing thing that I'm working on, and we'll see if it pans out. I don't know. So
what's interesting with Bitcoin in particular, it kind of creates actual cash, a fungible thing that you can pass around, right? Because now you are just passing around the actual private key,
right,
person to person. It's not on the blockchain. It's not being recorded.
It's kind of like that same concept as like an open dime, essentially.
Exactly.
And but at the same time, you have a lot of people that don't want to peel any of these coins or notes or anything, because essentially it is an art piece. And you do have people actually, as the 2017 spike, they had a lot of people were peeling their Cassatius coins, and Cassatius is like the gold standard, I guess, when it comes to collectibles. I mean, that's what everybody kind of goes for. And there's a ton of people that were peeling their, 1, 5, 25 Bitcoin coins. And, you're just thinking, well, okay, well, that leaves, 200, 150 of these coins left or whatever. And it just, you can see how later on in, 20 years from now, you could see how these things could be potentially really valuable on itself, just because it's an art piece.
Right. It's the ultimate symbol for hodling, right? Because it's like you managed to keep it through all the forks and all the peaks and all the valleys. You still held on.
Yeah, you can see how a lot of people would be tempted during those really I guess spiky moments where you're just seeing it in your hand. You're thinking, well, I could just easily just peel this thing and just put it on a exchange and get some cash out of it. Well, I can, and that does happen to people sometimes. Then therefore, it makes that collectible more valuable for the other hodlers in that aspect.
So how much do those go for now? Do you know the Caucasus ones?
Yeah, Cassatius. So for so here's the thing. The other interesting part of it to me is that, as Bitcoin gets way more expensive, compared to 2016, 2015, you see that the market kind of downtrends, but at the same time, you are still making money in the US dollar or whatever fiat you invested in at the time. So like, for example, so what I was saying, like 2016, 2015, I got interested in collectibles about, seeing Consensus coins. One Bitcoin Consensus coin was being sold for about 3 Bitcoin. So that's a $600 Bitcoin that is being sold for $1,800, right? So you might have held that coin all the way through and sold it until now, right? You sell that 1 Bitcoin for, however much it's going for now, 8,500, and then you get a 0.4 Bitcoin profit on top of that, right? So it's going for 1.4 Bitcoin just on average. And so, like, let's just say, like, but you're still also making like $4,000, I guess. But you're still accumulating, you're still profiting US dollar wise, but I don't know, you're still profiting, but you're not, I guess, profiting in the long term aspect. It would have been better to keep that Bitcoin, as a digital form. It'd been better to keep that 3 Bitcoin, but I don't know. It's just this whole market system is so early on. It's so it's so new that who knows what's going to be better. If it's better to hold digital coins, or is it better to hold physical art pieces if it all goes to zero? Because if Monero goes all to zero, maybe these other notes or coins that have Monero on them might be really valuable just in a cool, like, you might see it in a Pawn Stars or something like that. Like, who knows what 20 years down the road, what that would be worth. I don't know.
Yeah. I hear what you're saying. The hedge aspect of it.
Right. So that's a good point. It's hedging. It really is what it is.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So I know you want to give these away, but we'll wait to the end of the show.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That sounds good to me. Yeah.
So let's talk about a little bit more about like your whole take on the space, I guess. So you said you got in. It sounds like you were looking at it pretty early on, but then you didn't get in until around 2015 when you were just randomly searching Reddit, came across the Monero forum,
right,
and got into the collectibles. Were you also? I'm assuming you also obviously got into the technology as well, not just the collectible part of it.
Yeah.
So is Monero something that you're particularly interested in, or that just is where you've kind of randomly found yourself?
Well, so at first, yeah, I mean, like when I found Monero, it was interesting because I didn't know anything about Bitcoin from a technical viewpoint. So I found this. Imagine finding a subreddit about this random thing that you have no idea about, and it's comparing itself to this other thing that you've heard about, sort of, but you just all is that it's this thing that seems like a scam. It seems like some Ponzi scheme, whatever, and it's comparing itself to being better than that. Well, so like that part alone got me down this really deep rabbit hole. It's like, so I looked at a lot of these discussions being had about what it is that makes Monero better, and me not knowing anything at first. It's just like, okay, well, I can just understand the technical aspect that, yes, I've seen Bitcoin being mentioned when you're talking about the deep web or the dark web, and how people obtain drugs. I had some people I had some friends back in the day that would tell me, oh, this dark web Bitcoin thing, that's how I've obtained drugs or whatever before. And it's like, okay, that's cool, but I don't know anything about it. I don't know anything about Tor. I don't know anything about any of that stuff. And so essentially, like, I was looking at it from a completely different viewpoint. I have no idea. And so just seeing that everything needs to have, like, the purpose of cryptocurrency is that it's supposed to be hiding something, right? You don't use cryptographic proofs, or you don't use, PGB to like publicly broadcast yourself, to the world. You're trying to hide amounts. You're trying to, essentially create something that's like, digital cash, something that you can not be trace back to you. And that's what Bitcoin was initially trying to do. And that's what I was reading and seeing that there was these discussions being had that was kind of putting it down in layman's terms of how it was that Monero was different from Bitcoin was essentially something that took me down that rabbit hole. And it forced me to learn about, the inputs and outputs and what it is about a ring signature and what it is about stealth addresses and blah, blah, blah. That's what initially kind of, I guess, sparked it for me, I guess, at first. And I don't know, like from there, I kept on being curious about it. I kept on reading. I remember I went from Reddit to go over to IRC, the chat rooms where all the devs and just community members go and chat on the chat rooms. And I remember I had like this old shitty just Mac, or not Mac, it was a Windows just PC, and someone Gingeropolis, I don't know if you're familiar with him. He got me to finally start mining Monero, which was super exciting for me. Like I finally was able to do some of this. Like to me, it seemed like I was like some type of computer hacker or something like that. That like seemed really cool at the time, and I was getting like 12 hashes per second, and I was like, yes, like I'm gonna get some Monero. I'm gonna have, I'm finally figuring out this mining thing. And then I realized, 12 hashes a second really sucks. So I don't know if I'm going on this random tangents. I don't know, you can stop me at any time. But yeah, I mean, what's interesting about when I got into Monero from the beginning in 2015, comparing it to now, is that everything's on everybody has these this tribal aspect of having to root for a team. It seems like you have to root for your Bitcoin maximalist team or your Monero maximalist team, and it's not looking at it from I guess like comparing myself in 2015 when I had no idea about anything about cryptocurrencies, and I was seeing that I was able to kind of see yeah, of course, if every Bitcoin transactions being publicly broadcast, that's, in a cryptocurrency sense, obviously Monero would be the best choice because everything's more obscure than Bitcoin. And, it would be better if people, I guess, didn't root for a tribal team. I mean, I guess I'm guilty in some ways about having a root for Monero, but that's just, I find that it's the best option right now as a digital cash. If there was something that comes out later, I try to kind of keep my mind open to research other stuff. If there's other stuff that comes up that might be better than Monero, I try to keep my eyes and ears open and hear arguments out. But it seems like comparing 2015 to 2019, it seems like everybody's getting on these bandwagons. You have to be a maximalist in some way, just some type of maximalist. And it's interesting to look back on for me. I don't know. Yeah.
I say this on the show all the time. We're digital cash maximalists.
Yeah.
Monero just happens to be the best version right now. But the idea is keeping ourselves open-minded and on the lookout for something that could potentially do it better. My hope is Monero maintains its role as being digital cash just because that's the horse I have chosen. So it's easier for me to stick with that horse.
But let me ask you something.
But I try to maintain my open-minded.
Do you think that it's only, you don't mind if I ask you a question, right?
No,
so do you think that people would always want to digitally transact money over having physical money? Like, do you think that there would be a point in time where, even if we're using Monero, let's just say we're using Monero and it has some type of lightning network associated with it, so where scaling is not a problem, you can essentially use like Visa. Would there be any time where people would be comfortable of not holding something and giving something over to receive something else? I don't think that there will be ever a time where that's I don't think that people are comfortable. I'm talking about the broad spectrum of people on Earth. Like, I don't think that everybody would be comfortable to digitally hold a currency that, maybe not, everybody's not going to understand, and therefore there's not going to be that much trust in it. I think that there has to be different. I feel like there's going to be a point in time, like, let's just say if crypto were to actually become a world reserve currency or a country reserve currency rather than the Federal Reserve, I think that there will be, it's bound to happen that you're going to have people trusting a third party. I think you really can't get around from that. And it's a matter of how do you, do you think that there would be only digital payments in the future?
I do, yeah. I definitely think that's that will be the mass majority of what payments will be. I mean, we're already there in a lot of ways. I mean,
Yeah.
Things like Venmo or what's the one in China that everybody uses? I mean,
That Alibaba Pay, or is that what it is?
yeah.
Yeah.
But everybody over there is trying. They're not using blockchain, they're not using Bitcoin, but they're using
But a vast majority
digital
still
money.
use like they have let's just say if they're using like Apple Pay or something like that, or they're using their MasterCard. You
Right.
still have a phone that you can put up to the thing and it transacts money for you. Or and if anything happens with that transaction that goes bad, you can at least go to Apple and
Oh,
say,
right. So the whole third party thing is what you're
yeah,
saying.
right. I don't think that's my point. Is peer to peer digital cash. I just don't. That's the only part I'm still not completely sold on. And I can see that. Yep. Go ahead.
Oh no, I mean, I think that will be, kind of the rails, that everything will be built upon that. You'll have some people that will use it in its purest, most natural form, which is peer to peer, using it in the right way, without any third parties, without relying on anybody, without anybody holding your keys, or you're not trusting anybody to hold your keys. And others will use it in a different way where they kind of don't even realize they're using it. And then there's third-party services that are built on top of it, intermediaries that make you feel like where things will feel like they already do today in terms of digital currency.
Right.
But it's like Monero, Bitcoin, whatever it may be, that's flowing through it. That's kind of running it that's being run on a protocol level. But there will be those different layers. So like the noobs may be using things like look at like even like Coinbase, right? I mean, people are like, you're not really using crypto at that point. If you buy your crypto on Coinbase, keep it on Coinbase, and then send to other people on Coinbase. Like,
right.
What have you?
I guess like I'm looking at it from a perspective of like, okay, if the whole point of cryptocurrencies as of right now in this time is that it's mainly marketing to people that have a huge distrust in governments and the Federal Reserve or central banks, any type of central authority. I feel like out of those people, compared to the world population, it's got to be okay. Let's just give an arbitrary number, like 10% of the people, 15% of those people. All right, so out of those 15% of those people, how many people do you think that will have a doomsday apocalyptic, economic collapse of something? I would say probably another 10% of that population. All right, now out of those, I feel like that is the core group of people that is, I don't know. I feel like people don't necessarily trust even the internet being around and during those apocalyptic situations, or like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like there's.
I see what you're saying. I think that's the we're the early adopters, or I don't know but people with that mindset are the early adopters, right? So like the libertarians, the people that like really see the value in having an asset or a currency that's not owned by any bank or country, that's literally peer to peer.
But then also
There's people that understand the value in that, and they're the early adopters. And then for the rest of the world, they don't really see the value in that and understand, and may never actually actualize why that is valuable. But overall, it's more, I think, a more efficient way of transacting value. So it's slowly will be adopted, and I think there will be big moments in time that kind of usher that in, like when Cyprus, basically took a haircut off of everyone's savings account in whatever that was 2013. You kind of saw like a little spike in Bitcoin there. People be like, oh wait. Well, there's this other technology where if it existed, you wouldn't be able to do that. Right? So granted, Cyprus, small place, it's not happening all over the world. Banks aren't stealing everybody's money. Well, some could argue they are, but not in a very obvious way all the time. But it existed as a technology. Now we're years later, Monero, Bitcoin, they're even stronger than they were then. And the next time there is some kind of global world event, it exists there as this island, as this hedge, and it will continue to exist there. It seems to just be getting stronger and growing stronger. So I think it will happen in small waves. And, maybe the next thing is a larger global event. Cyprus was a small country, but, it hits some larger country. Look what's happening in Venezuela right now.
Exactly.
And people see, oh, wait, but I could port over to Bitcoin. Does everybody live in Venice? Do people in America really have that need, that use case to move over to Bitcoin and Monero? No, they don't. But in seeing what's going on in these other countries and realizing we're also fiat based and also potentially prone to these things, you think, wait, maybe I should own a little bit of this as a hedge, and then it just slowly starts to grow in that manner. But I do understand what you're saying is that 95% of the world doesn't really feel the effect of why you need it. But I think that just means that it's going to be a slow growing thing. This kind of, like we were this essentially this hedge against traditional assets and forms of money.
Well, let's just say, even if we were to have like a point in time where people kind of understand, like, let's just say from, I don't know, like going to the airport or going to a different country just to be able to have your currency be converted to another, like that country's currency, there might, be, I guess, a little bit more of like this is not a cryptocurrency where I have to hide my assets and I'm trying to hide something. This is just an international thing. This is something that everybody from every country can kind of get value from. And then that it's kind of like the same thing as gold for one thing. I feel like at some point in time, as of right now, I feel like there's a lot of people that don't trust anything, like, for one part, and that's what I like about it. You're seeing things from different viewpoints that you haven't really thought of before. And I read a lot of libertarian magazines, and I've read a lot of any type of magazine, New York Times. I read a lot of different stuff that kind of gets me in a different mindset, views it from different angles. So let's just say, can we always rely on the power grid? Can we always rely on satellites? Can we always rely on the internet being here for at all times? So I would say that yes, for sure you could. Like, I would bet money on that. But there's a lot of people that don't have that trust, and I just, like, for example, so like there's this thing that just recently came out about a couple months ago. That's the Utah Goldbacks. I'm sure you probably haven't heard of it. It just came out probably like a couple months ago, and it's the same type of concept with the Monero notes, that you have this synthetic polymer type of bill, but in that polymer you have like fractions of a gram of gold that's actually on that bill itself, and so there's value to that, right? That's essentially not tied to a bank. That's that you have to go to, like with the gold standard type of currencies from way back, where you have to go to a bank to be able to say, hey, here's my $1 gold certificate I would like my $1 in gold back, please. It's actually in the bill itself, right? So is there a point in time where, you know, a lot of these libertarian cryptocurrency type of people that can say, hey, well, maybe that might be a better alternative to have something that's a precious metal? We're getting back to our roots as a society of having a precious metal paper-based currency that where it's completely untraceable, and then we can get back to the roots. Well, I would say probably not, because everything's becoming digitalized, right? And I would say that, but if I guess what I'm trying to get at as my point is that there's these other alternatives that keep on being produced that kind of improves on this idea of like a better currency system. Whereas I still think to this day that Monero is the best currency system there is. But I see these things coming out like the Utah gold backs. Like, it's Utah, the state of Utah essentially is saying like, okay, everybody in, you know, every business that wants to accept this as a currency can, and they're saying that it's not illegal in any way. Will Utah eventually say Monero will want to do that? I don't know. I mean, well, like to have businesses accept Monero, I don't know. But it's interesting to see those new projects come out and see where it goes. I like seeing these different projects kind of take off, and that's kind of the same concept I have with the Spes Monerujo notes. Is that it's, you know, you have something physical that you can have loaded Monero on that you can show people. That's the part that I like about it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, me personally, I don't see those things as diluting the space or showing. I see them as kind of representative of the fact that these ideals that are behind Bitcoin and Monero are going a little bit more mainstream, to the point where you have these competing things coming out, being like, well, you might as well use the Utah Goldbacks. Right. But they really don't. I really don't see them personally as competing with Bitcoin and Monero, because they're kind of a step. They're kind of a step backwards. It's like, all right, they do some of what those things do, but at the end of the day, they're not digital cash. I can't, you know, cross the, you know, go around the globe with, you know, a brain wallet in my brain worth, you know, $100 million. I mean, you can't do that with Utah Goldbacks.
Right. No, and I think there's definitely a need for having a decentralized peer-to-peer currency cash-like system. That's why I'm a huge fan of Monero.
Yeah, and in terms of your other thing, just one of your other points, you know, like the idea of, oh, well, what happens, you know, when the grid goes down, all that stuff. I mean, obviously, you know, well, if that happens, we have a lot worse problems.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, we're still the infrastructure is still being built. I mean, I'm sure you've heard about the satellites that have been put up by Blockstream.
Yep.
You know, so that shows you what the future may hold in terms of creating a robust infrastructure. And then the tech itself is pretty robust. I mean, you know, the internet goes down tomorrow, you still have your private keys, right? They're not vanishing. Right. Yeah. Maybe, you know, it's going to be hard to transact on the blockchain, but, you know, it's not like everything just disappears. So things are pretty robust and redundant, and if, you know, we have much bigger problems when the internet goes down. There's always that argument as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see the core, I guess, cryptocurrency like Bitcoin that was, you know, the root of it all is becoming more, I guess, rah like. They seem to want to become more centralized. A lot of these communities, like with the Lightning Network, and, you know, rooting for you know, not rooting for one CPU, one vote type of system, like with RandomX. You know, they support a lot of these major players in the mining aspect. It's totally getting away from the point. It's totally getting away from these peer-to-peer, you can't, you know, censorshipless cash-like systems. And that's what has me really excited for this next coming up fork, is that, you know, it's enabling random, people like me to be able to try to mine again with my 12 hashes a second type of thing. I mean, it's obviously that's not going to be any good, but I mean, essentially gives me a better playing field, and it incentivizes people to actually participate in the network. And the thing that I like about what with the dev team is that they're always criticizing their own type of. They're always, I guess, dissecting it and trying to, like, if someone were to go on Reddit right now and post a long article that kind of tries to, I guess, attack Monero, or to be able to prove all these points that says that it's not as anonymous or it's not secure because of the hashes or whatever. They accept that, that they readily. I mean, it seems like the community readily accepts that, and they try to explain in a very understandable way for normal people like me, even back in 2015 when I came about, how they think that that's not true, how they can prove that, and then if there are vulnerabilities that come up in that conversation, then they will say, okay, well, maybe we can be able to work on that later and then put that in the next hard fork. Whereas Bitcoin never hard forks, like, ever. And it just seems like, it's so, to be able to have like a Monero research lab that has all these people coming up with new types of ways to obscure payments and to be able to make the efficiency better. That research is eventually going to get put into the next hard fork or the next couple hard forks at some given point in time if it proves worthy, and I feel like that's how any computer system should be. Is that's how Linux works? Is you're having an upgrade every 2 years, and that's how it should be. You're always constantly improving. You're not resorting to, oh, this is what the original founder said, this is how it should be, we should not touch it.
Right. I mean, yeah, look at the Constitution, or the United States, right? So, like,
exactly, yeah.
Granted, you're not upgrading it every day, but there is a means and methods to do it, and sometimes you need to do it. Obviously, in the early days, things got upgraded a lot more than they do now, right? So that's the way I see Monero. And crypto. It's like, we're still in the early days. We're still building the general framework. And then once you have that strong substructure and it's all set, then sure, don't touch it again, or only touch it if necessary. But to claim that you've already achieved digital cash is, I think, a little naive, when clearly Bitcoin hasn't. And they've pretty much given up on that, right? So they're not trying to implement confidential transactions. They're not trying to make it fungible on the base protocol level. They've kind of given up on that. Whereas Monero, we're still working towards it. But I do think once we do get closer, then I do agree that maybe, and I think the community, and I'm sure you would agree as well, then you would probably not want to upgrade as often, and eventually almost get to the point where you're rarely upgrading, right?
Right. Well, I always find it hilarious. Like, you would see, like, oh, well, Bitcoin could be able to put in confidential transactions. Like, that it's an eventual thing that Bitcoin will pass, and Monero is going to become obsolete, and you don't have to worry about that. Bitcoin eventually get around to it. It doesn't seem that way. It doesn't really seem like there's a whole push and strive to, like, okay, let's get these vulnerabilities that people have criticized us about, and to be able to improve on that. Whereas in Monero, you have people that criticize, and it's not like you don't see people defending themselves and saying, like, hey, don't. It's more like, let me explain my viewpoint, and if after conversations are had and they see that there is a vulnerability, it's not like, oh, let's hide that. It's, let's find a solution to this, and work and make that into the next upgrade, because that's I mean obviously you can't make a program 100% right from the get-go. There's going to be bugs that are going to be found, and you should improve on those bugs. So
yeah, totally agree.
and it's just like, with the Constitution, like you were saying something about the Constitution earlier. I mean, the Constitution was created as like, a livable document. That was what the four founders wanted. They were saying, we obviously understand that this document is going to serve the purpose for future generations. Now, granted, I mean, I don't think that we're really living up to the standards the forefathers would have wanted back then, or we're trying to hope for, due to privacy violations and other liberty issues. But I think that it was important for them to say this isn't it's a livable document that people should amend on in the future, and people should work on preserving these values. It's more about the values more than anything. And and I feel like Monero strongly holds Bitcoin's original values to heart.
Exactly. And then it tries to it does whatever it can to uphold those values. If that means upgrading and making some tweaks, the community comes together, and that's something that needs to be done to uphold the value of maintaining itself as digital cash.
Absolutely. Yeah. I found myself really lucky to be able to have found this, and to be able to come into a random subreddit, right, with no knowledge of what Bitcoin is from before. Because I feel like that would kind of hinder your thinking. It would hinder your, willingness to look up one thing or another. And I'm skeptical of myself sometimes too, because like, what if I am becoming this cult-like person that is trying to like always block out something that, someone might propose, and it's like, oh, well, that's not right or whatever. And, obviously Monero does these other things, because that's going down the same problem, the same road that, we've gotten to with Bitcoin. And I think that, it's very important to have a flexible mind always with these type of projects, just because it is so new. Yeah,
totally agree.
Yeah.
Do you use Monero? Do you send it around?
Yeah. So I used to use it a lot back. Well, I guess around like 2017, when I guess the price of Monero went up a little bit. I used XMR2. The website that to be able to send people Bitcoin payments and that sort of thing. That was the well, actually no, I'm sorry. There are some people on the forums that I've bought some stuff from in Monero that they say that they would want to accept Monero, but other than that, other than the collectible purposes, no. Not really. And I've actually been meaning to buy your gratuitous.
Oh, cool.
Thing. Yeah, no, I've been meaning to buy a bag, but I've had some other stuff in my life kind of going on at this point in time, and it slipped my mind. But now that I think about it, I'm gonna get that.
Awesome, man. That's a good segue, because I wanted to make mention of that. So anybody that's watching now, that's gratuitas.org. It's a website we started where you could currently purchase coffee. We'll be adding other products, but the idea is you could purchase coffee, and then you can tip the producers behind it. You can tip the farmers, send them tips directly in Monero. And then we're going to be adding other products too, like tea and honey and other things like that. And
I'm excited for the tequila.
Well, tequila is going to be a little difficult. We were looking into that. That one's going to be hard. I was excited for that one too.
Come on, man.
It might be a little hard to do. I know. Unfortunately, it's not as easy as we thought. But definitely next one will probably be tea. And but yeah, tequila's a little down the road. But I love
how's the business been?
Slow growing, as you could imagine. But we're using this show as the platform to get it out, and then the idea is, so any money we make will obviously helps support this lifestyle, right? So help support the show.
But I was really curious, have you had any feedback from the farmers?
Well, from the owner of the farm. We speak with the owner of the farm. We're going to be posting we have videos now of the farmers that the owner interviewed them, so we're going to be posting those soon on Twitter. They interviewed each of the farmers. I was hoping to go down there soon. So hopefully, if things start to pick up a little bit more, I can get a little more active in this startup. I mean, for me, it's kind of like the dream is, I'm traveling around the world, going to different farms, meeting the farmers, hooking them up with the private keys, talking to them about crypto. That's like the ultimate dream with the business.
That sounds like it's such a great idea, man. That's pretty cool. That's
thank you.
Pretty cool to start up. Yeah.
But the other thing, so I guess as we're segueing, when I was asking, do you ever use Monero? Because now one of our sponsor now is Cake Wallet, which is kind of always our unofficial sponsor, since I would basically always talk about them anyway. I'm sure you've heard on the show. So for anybody watching, we're sponsored by Cake Wallet. I personally use Cake Wallet. I have an iOS phone. I hold some Monero on there, and I hold it on my Cake Wallet, because it is the wallet that I trust. So anybody that is looking to get into Monero, use Monero, that owns an iPhone, I recommend Cake Wallet. There are other wallets out there. Cake is trusted by the community. It's open source. You hold your own keys. You use Cake as well?
Yep.
When I was a Bitcoin guy, Bread Wallet used to be my thing. And I was into it because of the idea that you held your own keys, and it, it was basically through the blockchain itself, not using any servers or anything for the transactions. So Cake Wallet kind of is that for Monero in my mind. So that's why I've always been a big Cake Wallet guy. So that's it for the sponsor talk. But yeah, should we get to the? I think we have people that are watching and waiting.
Yes,
for the announcement.
All right, so I'm going to be doing a lot of looking at my screen because I'm pulling up the chain now. So at this point in time, so we have 1941135. So 1941135 is the block that I'm looking at, so people can be able to verify. So last 2-digit characters, 92. So that would be the odd numbers that would have it.
So wait, the first one is 92?
So yeah, no, I'm sorry. We're going off the end. So it's always so for these raffles. For anybody that doesn't know, crypto, like on Bitcoin Talk, they have a lot of raffles on there. You take the block that you're looking at. You look at the block hash. The last 2 characters on that hash is what you're looking at. So I'm looking at xmrchain.net, and I'm looking at block 1941135. We got 92. So how I'm doing it is because you have the hexadecimal system, so you have 16 characters that you can possibly have. So there was more than 16 participants. So I filled it. In order to have more than 16 characters or 16 people participating, we had to extend it to another character. So anyways, long story short, we got the paste spin up. I don't know if we can possibly, I can be able to link it later on Twitter to how I'm picking it. But
do you want me to write anything in the chat?
Can I? I don't even know. But
I could write it for you. So
yeah, so it's basically, so you're taking that long list of that paste spin of people that I have. It's so every odd number that is listed there, that it's the odd number. So for example, 92, it would be an odd number, so all the odd numbers would be participating, and then you have 2. So whoever's number 2 that I have to the side of it. So I can't really, it's hard to explain, but I'll explain later if people want.
So the winner number 1 is number 2. Is that
yeah.
Is that correct?
So it's Wandering Pup, John Stevenson.
All right.
Wandering
John
Pup.
Stevenson.
Yep, that's it. Yep. So congratulations to John Stevenson.
How many are you giving out right now? So I have a
couple of buddies of mine that I've been I've been giving these away to a couple close friends of mine from the forums, and a close buddy of mine from in real life. So I've actually given away 2 sets, and this is my 3rd. So
Awesome.
Congratulations. But there's 100 sets in total, and we're planning on doing another 100 sets for the next run. So, and sets meaning 2 notes. So
Gotcha.
yeah. So we'll see how it works out. Hopefully it turns out well, and if not, it's a good story to tell later on in the future.
Yeah. No, this is like I said, I wanted to have you on. I try anybody that's doing something in the Monero community, no matter what it is, especially if it's a creative project, like a passion project. It's important to get you out there, and this happens to be a very cool one. Obviously, for all the reasons you're talking about, right? It's interesting.
So
go ahead.
Even though I'm actually not I'm actually losing a little bit of money from the giveaways. Honestly, I don't care. It's something that's been in the back of my mind for like 2 years, and it's just nice to finally have it actually up and running. So I'm happy to give people these notes or whatever away, and so from now on I don't have to spend any money to keep starting up these projects. It's just me working on the next the Carbon series that's coming out. So Carbon, whatever the next upgrade will be. So we'll see.
Yeah, like with Gratuitas, like I said, we're not making any money, but it's a passion project. It's something that and obviously you see it as also helping to grow the community and grow Monero, and I'm sure you own a few Monero yourself, so you benefit tangentially from that as the ecosystem grows.
Yeah, and also I want to make one more mention. So for those, a lot of these the artwork that came into the notes that was in the design is all community. A lot of it is community Monero symbols or Monero cartoons or whatever that got incorporated or somewhat kind of hidden in the background in some weird ways. So I appreciate all those people. I didn't really contact any of those people, but for the next run of notes, if there's any community members that want to be able to contribute art projects or anything like that, please get in contact with me on Reddit, Flow412, or on Twitter, same thing, Flow412. So we're looking for any type of cooperation on this as a community to produce the next series. So yeah.
Very cool, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's it. I think we covered it.
All right.
Anything else you want to talk about?
Yeah. No, I think that's pretty much it. I definitely appreciate you having me on. This has been a cool experience for me. So yeah.
Of course, man. Good luck on everything. Anybody that's watching. So where do they find you now? Where are they finding more information? Obviously, I put in the show notes, but if you want to. Yeah.
So there's a thread on Bitcoin Talk. I linked that on the Twitter pages I have. My main one is Floam412, and the other one is at Spesmonarujo. There's some tough spellings, and I'll be sure to, I guess I can message you those things that I want to kind of put in the show notes. So
yeah, text me all the links. We'll add it to the show notes. So wait, the name of this print is the Boron Butterfly. Is the name of
Boron Butterfly?
Boron Butterfly which was the last fork, right? Or
that was the last fork. Yep.
What is the name of the upcoming one?
I was actually posting on the forums not too long ago, like a day ago. I was like, is there any talk about it? And I don't think there's been a thread on it yet.
Oh, okay. I thought they already had a name. Okay.
No, they haven't. I think there are some suggestions, and I don't know. Maybe this will spark an interest on getting another name up. So, for me, that's exciting. So hopefully there'll be a name picked sometime soon. So.
Awesome, man. I'm sure it'll have something with the word random in it. Or next.
Well, whatever started with a C.
Okay.
So carbon,
right.
whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'll see.
All right, sir. Thank you. Good luck on everything, and definitely stay in touch. Send me those links. We'll add them to the show notes. All right.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you, man.
Thanks for coming on. Be good.
Take care.